Imagine a world where rain no longer falls, the ground is parched and cracked, rivers and lakes dwindle into dust. This is the grim reality of a world without the water cycle. Powered by the sun, it's the engine that drives life on Earth. The continuous loop of evaporation, condensation, and precipitation. Without it, our planet would transform into a barren wasteland. Lakes and reservoirs would evaporate under the relentless sun, rivers would shrink and disappear, groundwater reserves would deplete at an alarming rate. The consequences for humanity would be catastrophic. Climate change is already disrupting weather patterns, leading to severe droughts. Communities are facing water shortages that threaten their existence. The consequences of a world without rain are already being felt. The potential consequences are too dire to ignore. The time to act is now. We must address climate change and manage our water resources. The survival of our civilization depends on it. Agriculture, the backbone of human civilization, would be the first casualty in a world without rain. Crops would wither and die in the fields, leaving behind a desolate landscape. The lush green fields that sustain us would turn into barren wastelands. The impact on global food security would be swift and devastating. Livestock, too, would suffer a similar fate. Without access to water, animals would perish from dehydration and starvation. The vast herds of cattle, sheep and poultry that provide us with meat, milk and eggs would be decimated. The consequences for our food supply would be catastrophic. The economic consequences of such a scenario are almost unimaginable. Food prices would skyrocket, leading to widespread famine and social unrest. The collapse of the agricultural industry would trigger a domino effect, crippling economies around the globe. Millions, if not billions, of people would be pushed into poverty and hunger. The 2014 California drought provides a stark example of the economic havoc that even a regional drought can wreak. The agricultural sector, the state's largest industry, suffered losses estimated at $2.2 billion. Thousands of farm workers lost their jobs, and communities dependent on agriculture faced economic ruin. The economic fallout of a global drought would be far more severe than anything we've experienced before. The World Bank estimates that by 2050, water scarcity could cost some regions up to 6% of their GDP. This translates to trillions of dollars in lost economic output, dwarfing the impact of the 2008 financial crisis. The scarcity of water would lead to fierce competition for this precious resource. Conflicts over water rights would erupt between states and nations, potentially leading to armed conflict. The geopolitical landscape would be redrawn as countries scrambled to secure their water supplies. The cost of living would skyrocket as water becomes increasingly scarce and expensive. Bottled water would become a luxury good, accessible only to the wealthy. The poor and marginalized would be hit the hardest, further exacerbating existing inequalities. Governments would be forced to implement drastic measures to conserve water, including rationing and water use restrictions. Industries that rely heavily on water, such as agriculture, manufacturing and energy production, would face severe curtailments or even shutdowns. The global economy would grind to a halt. The impact on power generation would be equally severe. Hydroelectric power plants, which rely on the flow of water to generate electricity, would be rendered useless. This would cripple many countries that depend heavily on hydropower, such as Norway, Brazil and Canada. Nuclear power plants, which require vast amounts of water for cooling, would also face shutdowns. This would further exacerbate the energy crisis, leading to widespread blackouts and power outages. The lights would literally go out in many parts of the world. The loss of electricity would paralyze modern society. Homes and businesses would be plunged into darkness. Communication networks would collapse. Hospitals would be unable to function without power. Transportation systems would grind to a halt. We would be forced to adapt to a life without many of the modern conveniences we take for granted. Air conditioning, refrigeration, and even basic lighting would become luxuries. Daily life would revolve around conserving every drop of water and finding alternative sources of energy.